Welcome to Happy Recruiting, a podcast by Teamtailor, where we take a deep dive into recruitment and talent acquisition. I'm Lisa, heading up the HR team and also your host. And in every episode, you'll get the chance to join me to meet and listen in to some of the brightest people in the industry as they share their stories and insights. So whether you're a seasoned recruiter, an HR professional, or someone looking to break into the field, you'll be sure to find valuable knowledge and practical tips to take back to your own recruitment. Hi, and welcome to the Happy Recruiting podcast. My name is Lisa, and I am your host. And it's really great to have Kelly Davis joining us here as our first guest. Great to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me. Excited to be here.
Yes, thank you. And today we're going to talk about a topic which is a really important part of the recruitment process. So we're going to deep dive into the topic of phone screening and hear your expertise around it. But before we do that, we want to get to know you a bit on a personal level. And I happen to know that you are a Formula One fan.
Yes.
Can you tell me more about that?
Yeah, indeed. It is the off season for Formula One at the moment, so no races. So my weekends have been a lot emptier than they usually are. But it will start again very soon. And what's nice for me at the moment is my daughter is just kind of started getting into Formula One as well. So I get to share something with her, share a hobby and a love, and fingers crossed she'll be coming to races with us soon. So yeah, even more reasons to be excited for this season that will be begin soon.
Nice. Great to have a mutual interest with your daughter.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yes.
For this, the only mutual interest was Taylor Swift. So yeah, definitely nice to have more now.
Great. And again, thanks so much for joining us here for our first episode. And we have our studio here in Stockholm, and you have flown in from London, which is really exciting.
Yeah.
And in your role, you work as head of people at Sessions. Can you just tell me briefly what you do at Sessions?
Yeah, absolutely. So head of people, probably more commonly known as head of HR, but we think people sounds nicer, don't we? So it's more people related these days. And Sessions is a business which is a startup business in the food sector. We work in licensing and franchising food brands, sometimes partnering with the likes of Netflix, sometimes small food entrepreneurs or local founders in the UK. And we grow their businesses by partnering with operators up and down the UK at the moment, but global very soon, hopefully, for them to be able to scale these brands, all supported by our own technology, both hardware and software, allowing them to do that very easily. So, a business of many different types of people, everything from sales, account management, engineers, tech, marketing, all of the usuals. So, yeah, that's us.
Great, thank you. And again, in your role as head of people, or as you mentioned, head of HR, you cover a lot of different aspects in HR. But I know when we spoke before that you said that recruitment is your main love.
Yes, absolutely.
Can you tell me more? Why is that?
First love, main love. I imagine it always will be. It's definitely something that I really enjoy doing when it's time to, stop thinking about compensation or benefits or learning and development, and many aspects of my job I love, of course, but the recruitment's the one that puts the biggest smile on my face. I think it's that initial connecting with people, getting to know people, providing something which is a very important part of someone's life, choosing the right role, and something I feel a bit of an expert in these days, hopefully so, sitting here speaking to you. So yeah, definitely recruitment is a happy place for me.
First and main love, nice. And again, our topic here is the opportunity to deep dive into the phone screen part of the recruitment process. Yeah. So let's dig into it. And what's according to you, what's the purpose of a phone screen to start with?
Yeah, I think different people and different companies will have a different answer to this question. And I think kind of the obvious answer would be to gain more information from candidates to go alongside their application, dig a little bit deeper into into various different details of either their personal circumstances, like location, salary requests, what they're looking for. But for me, especially, a really big part of the purpose of a phone screen is to talk to them about the role, the company, and get them excited. They've probably applied for many roles. They've probably had many phone calls. It's really the opportunity for the company to get the information they need to make that shortlist that they are going to put towards the hiring manager. We do support the hiring managers at the end of the day, and it's all about making sure their time is optimized, but also really selling the company and making sure that the people who are going to be the right fit for your culture, your mission, are really excited when they hear they've got through to the next stage. So that's a big purpose in my mind for the phone screen as well.
And as you said, they're like a complement to the CV, which can give some type of information, but then on a more like personal level and
absolutely, it's
asking questions.
First human interaction they'll probably have with your company. Obviously, you'll have an employer brand, you'll have careers pages, employee value proposition. All of these things are so important, but this is the very first human interaction, probably one of the most important elements, because it's really when that candidate journey doesn't maybe begin, but really begins to, your reputation through it starts building, and important to get it right if that's really where that journey begins.
No, exactly. And as you mentioned, the importance of having it. So I think you mentioned some about it, but why is it important to have a phone screen as a part of your process?
I think a really good question, especially these days. I'm sure there'll be people listening who think, oh, we got rid of phone screens, or we now use screening questions instead, or I have played around with little video snippets. You ask a question and they film a short extraction of them replying, and there are many people utilizing technology and able to maybe cut out this process. Personally, I think technology is there very much to help to shortlist application questions. I use them basically every role we ever recruit, and they play an important purpose. But I don't think it can replace a trained individual. Having these phone screens, spotting the potential in people, feeling the culture fit, bit of a buzzword from the from 2020, but spotting any red flags, having conversations with them that you either realize this person could be perfect for us, or we're just not what they're looking for. And people say it all the time, but recruitment is a bit like dating and looking for a long-term partner. And
exactly.
Very much where the phone screen, phone interview, is where you can ask the main questions that can easily either determine that someone should spend more time in this application, both sides, or actually, let's not waste anyone's time. They're looking for something different. So very much two-way street. And I think, people can be frustrated when they don't get a role, especially if they've maybe had 3-4 stages, some in person, some might require tasks, presentations, more frustration if they think, you could have asked me that question in a phone call, and this wouldn't have got this far. I wouldn't have invested so much time. And therefore, I think it's kind of a duty for a candidate, one of, as I always say, the candidate promises that we make as talent acquisition professionals, to not, waste time or put someone along a process who may not have been right early on, and also for the company and the time they're investing. So really what I'm getting at here is it's a massive time saving. So I'm sure if we asked people, why have you cut out phone screens, they might say simplifying the process, saving time. I really believe myself personally, the company I have won't be right for everyone, of course. It's worth that little bit of extra time to perhaps save more time down the line.
Good. And you mentioned a lot of interesting keywords that we will pick up here as well, like using technology and other like screening questions and so on. So looking forward to digging deeper into those. But as you mentioned, I think also a lot of companies don't do the screening calls anymore. But how do you do them? How do you? How long are they? The ones that you run?
So I think mine are probably quite long compared to most people. I think I speak to people and they say, 10, 15 minutes just to get a gist of the person. Ours are about 30 minutes to 40. I do about 10 to 15 minutes of that, I won't lie, is explaining what our company does, the concept, how we make money, depending what the role is, the seniority. Obviously, this differs slightly, and we do send materials ahead of the phone interview for people to read. But we have a business that perhaps isn't as consumer facing as others, perhaps isn't as straightforward. We're almost in a very unknown industry, and therefore a lot of that phone screen is, I always make the joke, actually, I always say, I'm just going to talk at you for about 10 minutes now.
Good to set the expectations so they don't think that you're...
Absolutely. I mean, I think all talent acquisition professionals at every stage will say, set expectations of what to expect. And I don't think phone screen should be any different. So for that reason, mine are probably quite long. So I wouldn't suggest 30 minutes for everyone, but a huge amount of that is me doing that company sell, getting them excited, having them understand. Very, very a big reason that people don't move on from second stages, which is for us usually a virtual with the line manager. They say, I just don't think they got our business model, which means either I did a really bad job of that phone screen and explaining the company, or they've not put in any research into our company. So another reason they're quite long for us. And then the second part of our phone interview is much more about them checking key skills and traits, and then also what I call those boring HR questions.
Could be an example of one of those.
Do you have the right to work in this country?
Yes.
Being one of those. I have had situations before where I've gone on holiday and someone not HR professional has not used the templates or the training they've been given. I've come back, they've said, we've offered someone, I've gone, great. I've called them, they don't have right to work in the country, and they've gone through 4 stages, including a presentation. So that's, I'm sure people listening going, oh yeah, that's happened to me before. So, small information, even things like salary expectations. Obviously we have a we have an application question, which is, what are your salary expectations for this role? But there is a large number of people that will either put a lot higher than what their realistic expectations are, or actually a lot lower because they saw it was advertised lower than their expectations. And both sides can cause problems if you don't double check these things. So, those boring HR questions, as much as we joke, could actually save hours and hours of both hiring manager and candidate time to have an honest, open conversation. And people are more likely, once you've made them feel comfortable, once they've had a bit of a chat, once I've spoke at them for 15 minutes, to be more honest and open about their expectations, and therefore everybody be able to make a judgment about whether this is worth investing more time in this process.
Agree. And as you said, creating that rapport as well. Then to maybe talk about salary comes a lot more natural than someone just putting a number in a questionnaire or something. Yeah. So I think it's a good, and as you say, you mentioned a lot of points here as well, why it's important to have it.
Absolutely. And rapport is the perfect word, I think you said there, because usually the person doing the phone screen, and certainly for us in our company, is usually the person who is organising the interviews, is calling them to give them feedback, is really their guide through the candidate experience and the recruitment process. So building that rapport at first steps. So actually they're worried about taking the role because of X, Y, Z. Once you are the person who offers them, and you are the person to speak to them initially and reach out to them and have that rapport built, is so important. And I've been able to have people on the fence about whether this opportunity is right for them. But because I've built that rapport and we had a great phone screen and I learned about their travels through Asia or whatever it might have been, have been able to see, outcomes that have, had them join and be very successful afterwards as well. So yes, building that rapport, very important. Yeah.
Good. So timing-wise then, around 30 to 40 minutes. But as you say, I mean,
Yeah.
something which might be specific to your company, so to make sure that they
Absolutely.
understand
I do
what you
think
do.
it's important at least 15 minutes because if you only give someone 5 minutes, you could have issues, right? People might think that you were making snap judgments. There could be even, as seriously as discrimination issues they might worry about, with such a short phone screen. They probably are not going to feel you've actually given them time to impress them. Was I actually given the opportunity to show that I'm right for this role? So I think 5 minutes and sometimes even 10 can be too short. This person's applied for your role. Depending on your application questions, it might have took 30 seconds. It might have took 10 minutes. You should give them at least the amount of time it took them to apply for the role on the phone. So I would always say to people, don't aim to have them less than 15 minutes. Obviously, it depends on the seniority of the role and expectations and how many skills that you need. If it's an entry level role, perhaps 10 minutes is fine. If it's not an entry level role, my personal experience would say, when I do my recruitment training with various people, do not have them shorter than 15 minutes, let them.
Best practice.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I agree. And you mentioned another great keyword here as well, which is the selling part. And I know when we talked before as well, you mentioned that, I mean, a screening call is also, even though of course you have to introduce the company, that it's also a two-way conversation.
Absolutely.
And why is that important to look at it as like a sales process?
It's funny because I was talking to somebody else about this a little while ago, and I said recruitment is sales, and we're selling something extremely important because we're selling for most people 5 days a week of their time, their career, how they're building that. So you're selling the ultimate kind of thing, really. The ultimate product is somewhere they're going to invest so much time in. And you want to be honest. Sometimes the sell, you want to match it to what's going to be important to them as well. No point of talking all about amazing training and progression opportunities you've got to someone looking for a 6-month internship or, who's not interested about 2 years on in your company. So listening to what they're saying and selling to match honestly and what you can actually, what they can expect versus just what sounds amazing. And getting them excited about the right things is, I think, a real skill. And I think with training and experience, that can come quite naturally to most, people that are happy speaking to people they don't know on the phone, which is a skill in itself. I've seen people be brilliant in person and terrible on the phone before. So, really, that sell, I think, really, really important, definitely.
And I know you mentioned at some point as well that, as you said here, I mean, everyone can be good at different things. And at some point, I think you had an example where, I don't know if it was a hiring manager or someone who said like, oh, but we can just do it ourselves. And so on. But you said something like, I mean, but it's not anyone can do it because it's more of a science on how to do it. What are your thoughts on that?
Absolutely. I think there's various things in recruitment where, people that are of a certain seniority or, intelligence level, they just think, oh, it's just picking up the phone and talking to people, isn't it? Like, we can do that, don't worry. And it normally comes from a good place, right? Wanting to help speed up the recruitment process. If you have a small HR team like we do, or your, main talent acquisition person is away, most people will be like, well, I can do them for you. Don't worry. Don't be stressed. We'll help you out. And I've seen some horror stories before. Obviously, you do training, you give templates, but people think, oh no, I'm good on the phone. I can do that myself. And we've had everything from people be offered, and then when they decline and turn it down, they've been really sure. I thought they were really interested, and then we've gone, but we've offered them 20k less than what they're on because no one checked the salary or the sell wasn't done. And actually, they, another company really went into a lot of detail about what life at that company is like, and socials and career progression and values and the mission, and all of those things have excited them in a way that just wasn't done by your company. So whether it's the boring HR questions that haven't been
Again,
asked.
exactly.
Or it's the sell. It really is a skill that I don't think people should be quick to say anyone could do without training and without a bit of guidance from a talent acquisition professional.
No, I like that. And also, of course, I mean, as a person, you are the one then having the screening call. But you also mentioned sort of using technology as part of this. Can you talk me through? I mean, how do you combine the human touch and using technology in a good way?
Definitely. And I think we can all agree that, recruitment technology has become so important in recent years and has given us back so much time. Recruitment admin was, especially when I first got into the industry, I felt like it was 50% of my time was doing recruitment admin. And obviously with technology, with ATS systems like Teamtailor, with triggers, with templates, with all of these things, it's absolute game changer for recruitment. Personally, for us and phone screening in particular, there's a few different things that we use. We're now introducing skills and traits for every role that we recruit for, which is multiple reasons. We want to have a more data-led approach to our recruitment, and also trying to take away any biases and make sure there's a real fair process, which technology can be very good with helping you with. So now, before we start seeing anyone or interviewing anyone or even put the job advert up, I'll sit down with the department head, hiring manager, and we'll, if it's a new role, talk about the key skills and traits that we'll be interviewing for, which then follow them through the whole of the recruitment process. So every step of the recruitment process, the same things are, become the things that we kind of judge upon, trying to not use the word judge there, but assess them on, I suppose. So that's very much the first step in using technology, in having the templates that you're completing while having these conversations, which then give you a fit score at the end of it. Templates, obviously, I've just mentioned there as well, especially when we're going to talk about fairness in recruitment. You don't want to ask people completely different things. It's not fair on the candidate. So making sure, obviously, conversations go different ways, and that's fine. But the core questions that you're going to really be assessing them on are asked by everyone, and very much something technology helps with.
Exactly.
Also, if you're not the one doing the phone screen, someone else has stepped in. They're being judged by the same things, assessed by the same things. And then, how we assess that at each stage is all done by technology now. And even the templates when you're inviting people to the phone screen, we have templates set up. So the main documents that would be useful for them to read, we have a recruitment pack we send out, a job description that gets sent out. We set all these templates up beforehand. So when we are scheduling, and we use the scheduler, which is a key part of technology, obviously. We use a template, and it takes us seconds to invite someone and for them to get the right documents and for pick a time that suits them using the scheduling technology. Super important. I've seen a massive drop in people not attending phone screens since using scheduling technology, because they don't know how to cancel, they don't know how to reschedule, or a time was given to them that actually never really worked for them. We're using scheduling in a way that you can actually pick a time that will suit me as the interviewer and you, and when it's best for you. Could be a lunch break or a day you work from home or whatever it would be. So I would say they're the main bits at phone screen: scheduler, skills and traits, templates, triggers. Really, really important.
And great examples. And as you mentioned here as well, I mean, if you use technology to solve all of these tasks, then then you do have the time also for that 40-minute call.
Absolutely,
I guess, I mean, if you were doing everything by hand, I remember when I started in recruiting, then you had to look manually in people's calendars and coordinate and so on, which took enormous amount of time. But I mean, of course, it's another way of working, and where you can put the I guess, the quality and the human touch.
Absolutely.
Where it's absolutely needed.
I was training someone in one of our venues recently, and I was doing it before I was giving them a training session. I just thought I'd have a look at what they'd been doing on the system. And there was one example where it was 7 emails backwards and forwards about when this person could do. So I immediately was like, let's re-show them the scheduling tool, because it saves so much time. Yeah. And I remember those days, or calling them and it's not a good time, and then you're calling them another, it's still not a good time. And, it's 4 or 5 times before it is. So yeah, really saves so much time.
And I know we talked about in the beginning as well, that it's like a two-way conversation, that it's not only, either the recruiter or the candidate who talks during the phone screen. Yeah. And have you seen any changes? When you started in recruiting, I guess also the market goes up and down. Sometimes it's a candidate market, sometimes it's more of a employer market. Yeah. How have you done any, I guess, adaptations in the templates that you're using, depending on?
Definitely, yeah. I think it's all talent acquisition professionals' least favorite phrase, candidate-led market. I don't know anyone out there who likes that phrase. And when I first started off, it was very much, the call was all about what could they give me. I had a set of questions. It was probably very robotic. I was probably very rubbish at it initially. And I was probably just reading off the, question by question. None of the questions would have been, what's important for you? Why are you leaving your current position? What don't you like there? What do you like there? What are your aspirations? What are your values? What's going to make you super happy in your next role? I definitely wasn't asking any of those questions, 10 years ago. And it was probably quite robotic in the way that I was phone interviewing. You weren't, building a rapport. You were literally just someone that had a job to get this information from them. And I'm sure they came off the phone thinking, God, that was scary. And you never get the best from people when they're scared, nervous, very much the biggest advice and best advice I ever give anyone when doing recruitment training is just make them feel comfortable. So I think over the years, I believe I learned that pretty quickly. And it was all about, how can I make these phone screens make someone feel more comfortable? I remember I even had training on tone of voice. I don't know if anyone else out there, anyone who's done sales training, they say before you pick up the phone, smile and then pick up the phone. Yeah. That was very kind of old school training, but, being very aware of anything from how your voice sounds to introducing yourself. 10 years ago, no way I would have said, hi, I'm Kelly and I'm calling from Sessions and I'm this role and this is the main reason I'm calling and this is the agenda of the call. And, what's funny, is it still a good time? I've very much learned the hard way that it's not always a good time. And if you don't check, sometimes you're talking for 2 minutes and then they say, oh, actually, can you call back? Yeah. And you're like, oh gosh, okay. So being very aware of what is making them comfortable has definitely changed through the years. Candidates asking questions has definitely changed. I think I remember being told they'll probably ask 1 or 2 questions right at the end. And I think we are all still guilty of going, do you have any questions? But only right at the end of the call. Exactly.
It's like 30 seconds left and then you have to squeeze it in.
And you've probably said, oh, we've got 1 minute left. Do you have any questions? Exactly. Whereas now candidates are confident enough to, maybe not interrupt you. Most are very polite, but after every segment of the phone interview, asking questions about it, asking you to elaborate, and as long as you're asking the right questions, giving you information that then allows them to go into more detail and ask about the things that matter to them. So very much, as you say, that two-way conversation is probably the biggest thing that I've seen. And then moving into more modern times, their candidate getting what they need from the phone call. And that has obviously massively changed. What's your vision? What are your growth plans? I've been asked a lot recently. How much investment has your company kind of got, especially obviously working in the kind of startup and scale up sector?
It's an important
they want to know about stability at the company. They want to know if they'll be open to innovate and have a chance to add, and ask a lot of asking about your missions as well and your values, and if you're giving back in some way. So yeah, all things that I think people aren't waiting till the last question to ask. And someone said, "Oh, it's terrible, I don't have a question to ask," a little while ago to me. And I said, well, if this has gone how it should have, you shouldn't have a question to ask at
exactly.
the end.
That means you've done your job with
exactly. It meant they were comfortable enough to ask them just as a conversation, and we did our jobs enough to explain all of the things we think were important. So
perfect two-way conversation.
Absolutely.
I would say.
I think the days of being taught, make sure you have one question at the end to ask.
Exactly. But now it's more
very changed. Yeah.
Positive trend. I mean, you shared a lot of really hands-on sort of practical advice. And I always want to ask as well, I mean, are there any resources that you can share? If someone who's listening to this episode wants to learn even more or get your, I don't know, templates or personal tips.
Absolutely.
Is there something you can recommend?
Would anybody who'd like to reach out to me and ask about templates we use, or I'm always really open to sharing resources and learning from each other. And I'm a big kind of advocate of attending networking events. And I'm also part of a few kind of WhatsApp groups of different HR and TA professionals. And we're constantly saying to people, does anyone have a template for this? Or does anyone have a policy on that? And I very much love the ability to share and be part of a network, helping each other out. So I'd be more than happy to share any templates. And we have various different templates for different departments as well. We've started building our interview questions, even at phone interview stage, around those skills and traits that we're selecting for each of the roles. Teamtailor does a great job with that with Copilot. Thank God for Copilot and AI. Should have probably mentioned that one when we were talking about technology earlier. But yeah, more than happy for people to reach out and ask. And perhaps I can share in the right places our main kind of telephone template before we get into it.
Wow, that would be amazing. But thank you so much, Kelly. I mean, for me, it's been so nice to just deep dive into a topic like this and to hear all of your tips and insights. So thank you so much for joining us here today.
Worries. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. That wraps up today's episode of Happy Recruiting. We hope that you enjoyed our conversation and found some valuable insights to take back to your own recruiting efforts. So until next time, stay positive, stay inspired, and happy recruiting.